Hello, everyone. Welcome tonight. We're on Whistleblower Pie, Season 2, Episode 1, which is SORIA Pie. We're slicing up a bigger pie tonight, and we're looking forward to sharing it with you. I'm Billie P., co-host, and I am. You can find us on whistleblowerpie.com and on Facebook on Whistleblower Pie. Find us online, share with us, jump aboard. And also, if you're a Patrick Soria victim, I ask that you please get a hold of me. Tonight, we had someone else get a hold of me, and I'm going to talk about that. We've had a lot of people reaching out. So before we go, I got to make a disclaimer because we are just for entertainment purposes. These are all opinions of us victims, whistleblowers, and what we're providing you tonight is just our basics, our information. So we're not here to give you legal advice. We're here to give you information and maybe help you find a path to protecting your lands. What we're about to do is we're going to name names. We're going to name judges. We're going to name attorneys. And we're going to talk about how Patrick Soria is put away for wire fraud. And the way they claimed he had wire fraud was through the recorded documents in the land records. Forged documents in the land records was the foundation for charging him with wire fraud. What we know and what we all know on this crew here tonight is that the forgeries also come with crimes. It's a crime to record a forgery and steal title. So what's interesting is that if you're an investor, they're going to listen to you. But we, the people who have gone to the district attorney, have had no one listening, no one hearing us, and no one looking at our evidence, knowing that Patrick Soria's forgeries in the land record are how they charged him. So we find that to be a real interesting piece of the pickle here. And yes, I said pickle. There are pickle pies too. We're not being heard, but we are the unseen and unacknowledged first investor in line of everything else. We know that that's a fact, Jack. Call that Jack Pie, Jack Reed. So what we're going to do is we want to clean up the land records of America. And so we won't have any Patrick Soria pies to talk about again. Without those land records, they can't commit those crimes. They can't take our title. So my co-host tonight is Faith B. Hey, Faith B, Sweet Pea, raise your hand there.
Hey, you.
You look wonderful. Faith's a 10-year distinguished leading financial let me try that again, Faither. She has a distinguished tenure at leading financial institutions, including Wells Fargo, Countrywide, and Bank of America, and over a decade of advocacy and contract law. Brashear is positioned as a formidable force against financial malfeasance. Faith and my co-host, Chance Mcfadden. We're sorry to say Chance could not make it tonight. Chance had a family emergency and is at the hospital actually right now as we speak. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about Chance. He's become quite a celebrity in his own right because he talks about status, our status, and he knows what that means. And all of us on this show do too. If you don't, that's another show for you. We've got them taped all across the country regarding that. Chance is a 71-year-old who's been studying the law, and even though without a degree, he's considered a constitutional lawyer. He specializes in misdemeanors, house repossessions, status repair, and general legal knowledge. He also assists with trust and offers consultations. He is very proud of the fact he has saved a lot of people's land. Can you mute yourself there, Tom, please?
You bet.
Yeah, mute if you're not on so we don't have the background noise. So, and with that statement, I got to say that is a very big mouthful. A lot of us on here know a lot of people who've gone to jail or have been falsely accused of recording their own documents while the forgeries are stealing their home. So we've had a lot of people, we have people sitting right now in jail without a trial and with just a judge making things up and not letting them in. So anyhow, tonight's show is going to be turned over to my dear partner, Faith. Thank you, Faith.
Well, thank you, Billie. Hello, everybody. Faith B here, still here. And before we start tonight, I'd also like to take a moment for our guests that couldn't be with us tonight and to our listeners who, like us, are sick and tired of these bad actors especially when our legal prayers for relief go unanswered during moments of these trials and tribulations that we all have endured. Let us lift up our brothers and sisters who have suffered much, much worse. We have all of us, we have all been in this fight together. We all know it's not just about property loss. Many of us have lost family, friends, neighbors, our dignity, and our once held strong pride in this beloved nation of ours. Okay, let's remember to continue to lift those up in needs, regardless of their private beliefs, in hopes that our words here tonight help give the strength to those tired and beaten. Listen to me now. Remember who you are and what you stand for. Okay? Our prayers, our thoughts, our energy go out to you all. For those no longer with us as well, Semper Fi, Semper Paratus, Semper Fortis, Semper Duris, Semper Gumby, and of course, Semper Supra. We love you and appreciate all of you, and thank you all for being with us tonight. Now, for those affiliated with entities acting under questionable legal pretense, such as the color of office through these colorable court laws, tuning in tonight, please understand our intent is not to offend, but to clarify. Okay, let this discussion ensure there is no misunderstanding for SLAPP purposes. The statements made herein are expressed in a personal capacity, not representing any past or present employer. Our whistleblowers featured on this platform and in confidential discussions have not misrepresented themselves as government or financial institutions, nor have they provided statements without substantiation. Okay, now, let's get into the heart of these financial warfare matters and slice up a piece of these injustices out of that pie and serve it up to the American people right here and right now. Okay, tonight we are going to talk about the United States of America versus Patrick Joseph Soria, aka Daniel Olson, aka Spencer Ferguson, aka Stephen Wright, who was prosecuted by the all-caps team of Tracy Wilkinson, acting U.S. Attorney, Brandon D. Fox, Assistant U.S. Attorney, Chief Criminal Division, and Carrie L. Quinn, Assistant Attorney, Major Fraud Section in Los Angeles. Now, this case highlights the intricate nature of Soria's fraudulent real estate activities and emphasizes how easy it has been to manipulate what we simply refer to here on the show as dirty deeds. With respect, Judge Fisher, if you happen to be listening tonight, we do assure you that what our whistleblowers have provided to the DOJ was far more nefarious intel. And because we grow tired of these bad actors enriching their lives while destroying ours, we have taken the liberty to detail exactly how you all are cheating in our soon-to-be released book, Financial War and U.S. Trust Boom, Mortgage Frauds of the 16-Year Plan Exposed, coming soon to a theater near you. Had to plug it because it's coming. Okay, but for now, in this segment of SORIA Pie, you will hear from some of the Powers National Whistleblower team members and interested parties in the Powers Brashear cases. Rory Woods, Renee Weiler, Valerie Lopez, Janet Hill, Carol Kine, Jack Reed, and Tom Kibler. I'm mispronouncing it. I'm sorry. I do that a lot. I really am sorry.
That's okay.
Duly note, we did invite guests who ignored their invitations and did not respond. Amongst them are Orange County DA Todd Spitzer and his Assistant DA Leslie Young, Judge Delph S. Fisher, and Sandra Thompson, the Director of FHFA. Even though we know those investigations were received by them, they seem to have better things to do than to come and be with us tonight. Okay, so now that we have your attention, let's give a proud welcome to Linda Nash. Linda was a real property appraiser for 20 years and is an expert in the land records. She formed a nonprofit organization called Homeowners Legal Rights. They are an educational watchdog group that addresses the government directly with homeowner issues, concerns, and explains how these issues can be lawfully resolved. Linda has spoken with many whistleblowers and landowners who seek out the incredible amount of knowledge she holds. Without further ado, Linda, the floor is yours.
Linda.
Thank you. The filing of fraudulent forged. Yes.
No,
hello.
You go. Just talk. Just talk.
Hello?
Just talk. Linda, just talk.
Okay. The filing of fraudulent, forged. I am.
No, you have your phone going.
I
Turn your-
am.
No, your phone is going. Stop your phone.
I am not on my phone.
Well, you have you just have a vibe.
I'm not on my
vibrato.
phone. My phone is shut off.
Okay, let's do this. Just talk. We're not interrupting. Go ahead.
Okay. The filing of fraudulent, forged, improper, and invalid documents in the public land record conveys nothing to anyone. It is trafficking and laundering of title, which is a felony in every single state in this nation. Keeping accurate records of perfected chains of title to each parcel of American soil is the responsibility of the executive branch of state government as a requirement for statehood itself. Every county that allows e-file documents in their land records has a property fraud alert warning on their website. This does not transfer or relieve government of any obligation to the American people to keep accurate records and uphold the law that protects these records.
Awesome.
The Patrick Soria case, while an example of government,
I think Linda froze on us there. So I'm going to go ahead and take over a little bit here while a lot of times this happens because we live in areas that aren't real good with our websites and things.
Obligation, requirement to.
Linda, can you stop for a minute, please? And then I'll bring you on in a little while. You're having trouble with your delivery. So we'll bring you back in at the next segment where you're supposed to be on and you can finish.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, guys, tonight's show is not just about Patrick Soria and his victims. Tonight's show is also about victims sitting right here and sitting out there listening to us. We are live across a lot of different channels, and I can see a lot of you are sitting there listening, and I hope you're taking notes. This is about the victims. And while Powers versus Bank of New York Mellon and Bashir versus U.S. were going on, demanding that the USAG enter into their cases, secure Software County DAs, Los Angeles, Orange County, Riverside, San Diego, played out another case. What I believe is a shadow case to Powers and Bashir's, mimicking our demands for justice, but only delivering a sliver of a piece of the pie. It is widely believed that running the Soria's case while the Powers and Bashir's cases were going on was designed to give an appearance of doing something, while all along burying the bigger picture, burying the victims in fire-hot cases. And we say fire-hot cases because if you look up the term shadow docket, shadow cases, they're always saying they're fire-hot cases that got to get done quickly, the judges are doing. Well, what I want you to know is that Carol Keene, actually in 2012, termed that name, shadow docket, shadow cases, in claims and work she was doing to the Supreme Court. Professor William Butte is claiming to have termed that in 2015. He's the faculty director of constitutional law at the University of Chicago Law School, but it wasn't him. It was Carol. Because way before that on Two Moms on a Burro, Carol and I were talking about shadow docket, shadow cases, anchor dates being birthday dates, how we look up things that are happening to us on our cases by correlating how they're recording on these special times. But what we do know is Soria trafficked titles to properties through fraudulent title filings done at the county recorders. He forged the filings to make it appear that he owned the properties, and then sold the properties to victims who thought they were buying the homes with the true owner. Now, many of them weren't victims. Many of them were investors, even foreign investors, which is our episode 2. So it's called ownership laundering, putting somebody on title that has no reason to be there just to hold the title, while behind the scenes, they're dirty title companies and LLCs of all of their mortgage companies that are lumped into one, do all this nefarious title clearing behind the scenes. They call it title cleaning. You can't clean it. Title can't pass by fraud, period. It's going to go back to all of these faces on the screen are going to have their homes back. We are not stopping. So all of you listening out there, you DAs, you sheriffs, your FBI agents, all of you that I know are listening, because I know you are. I can see who's on here in certain numbers and restricted numbers. Restricted numbers are telling me you're listening. You've heard our information, okay? So Carol is not here tonight to talk about it, but she is going to be putting out a paper and will be coming on episode 2. And Carol's findings have everything to do with the Soria's case and how she knows it's also a shadow case, and how she can tie it to Brashear and Powers, and how we know that Judge Carter was running our case with all you interested parties, everyone's face that's on this screen, and trafficking us through other cases. It's a fact, and we're going to learn about it. So I'm going to turn this over once again to Faith, and she's going to finish up here. But please know that if we didn't have fraudulent land records, we wouldn't be here tonight talking about any of these criminals. There would be no ownership laundering. There would be none of it. Take it away, dear Faith. Yeah, we can't hear you. How about I unmute you? You're muted, Faith. Well, she's talking away.
All right.
There you go. We saw all the animation.
Okay. All right. So what I was flailing on about. Okay, you see, dear listeners, during the same period of time that these frauds were being outlined in the DOJ Soria case, the observations related to the investigations for the Powers and Brashear case, not only did it expose the SECURE title recordation system that was utilized by Los Angeles, San Diego, Riverside, Orange County, California, these cases highlighted the critical implication of such systems on the property ownership and legal title conveyances across the nation. This procedure, by its design, did identify very proud U.S. members of We the People, aka us as individuals, as financial entities capable of extending their own credit to lend back to the banks as the undisclosed NA banking partner, whose legal title was channeled, ownership laundered, title racketeering, whatever you want to call it, through the future foreclosing expiring remake, and then it was lent back to them under the presumption of a loan. From there were ownership laundering through to the depository trust companies that were in the remix back to the AKA Societe Anonyme LLC, AKA the Anonymous Society, AKA Y. And Billie, you're absolutely right. They were using timing devices and triggering mechanisms that were tied into the backdoor bond maturing that were already pre-triggered up front to create these defaults on these deeds of trust across the nation. This is why tonight is so very important. So very important. Where am I going from here, Billie? Who am I introducing next?
Well, you're going to be introducing Renee Weiler, and you have the bio.
Renee Weiler.
Mm-hmm. I'll read her bio. How about that? Renee Weiler. Renee and I do a lot of work together. We've known each other a lot of years. We've done a lot of work with MERS. She created her own company regarding MERS audits, Weiler MERS audits. Renee is a formidable force herself. She has been at many meetings in Michigan. She has helped take to task for our findings in the Dominion voting systems. She and I and Valerie Naif and Lori Cole were the 4 women who intervened in the case, and she's going to talk about that a little bit. But she's a veteran of mortgage banking and the owner and only signing authority for Weiler Mortgage, an active Ohio LLC. Prior to the mortgage meltdown, her company originated millions of dollars in mortgages in both Ohio and Michigan as the original lender. She intervened in the Powers-Brashear cases, giving her criminal claims to DA Todd Spitzer's office, including investigator John Min. She and her fellow whistleblowers have been targeted by judicial officers, state bar attorneys, and FNMA in challenging their secret tri-party FNMA agreement in the taking of land. And she's going to explain that a little bit as well. So Renee, I have a lot of respect for you. She couldn't get on the computer tonight, but I've got her on phone, and I'm going to put her up here and let you listen. So Renee, go ahead. Oh boy, Renee, get in a better spot. This happens all the time. We can hear you. Don't move. Take 1 foot on the wall and a hand on the ceiling. There we go.
I'm Renee Weiler, and I've spent the last decade identifying officers of the court, including clerks, administrative judges, bank attorneys, and law enforcement personnel who have aided and abetted Wall Street banks and foreign investors in the great taking of our identities, our mortgage data, and corporate identities to steal our soil/land. For the last 10 years, I have thoroughly researched MERS, or Mortgage Electronic Registration Systems, Inc., a data harvesting artifice, and its connection to title companies who aid and abet in the theft of our real property. I am in possession of a subpoena ordered by a Leelanau County judge that proves Fidelity National Finance, Fidelity Land Title / Chicago Title, and locally Corporate Title Agency fabricated 2 conflicting title abstracts to aid and abet a Swiss company, Select Portfolio Servicing, and a Japanese company, Baby Loan Servicing, in the theft of title to my personal residence and the seizing of my customers' mortgage loan files. My property remains in adverse possession by a trespasser who had constructive notice through our land records of fraud and chain of title due to widespread corruption of public officials in Leelanau County, Michigan, and Michigan court system in the taking of my land. The U.S. Supreme Court, through its clerk, Scott S. Harris, has been given legal of the laundering of ownership by our own government, state board attorneys, and Fannie Mae by my declaration that can be found on academia.edu, Renee Walters Weiler. I personally audited the MERS mortgages on the primary residence of the following compromised judges, and my YouTube station provides evidence of judicial conflicts of interest. For example, their MERS mortgages registered in the database don't reconcile with the local land records. These judges include, but are not limited to, the following: Judge David Carter of California, Judge Kevin Elsenheimer of Leelanau County, and Judge Marion Krumkowski of Leelanau County. These officers of the court, as well as former Congressman David Trott and his fraud closure firm, is the largest in the state of Michigan to steal title to Michigan homeowners' real property. He uses almost exclusively attorney Marcy J. Trott to fabricate title. Attorney Linda Orleans and her daughter Allison are the second most fraudulent law firm in Michigan, and they operate in Massachusetts and have routinely destroyed title to homeowners' real property. Linda Orland, Marshall Isaacs, attorney, record the majority of fraud in our land records in Michigan. The third largest firm perpetrating the laundering of titles is.
Oh, we lost you, Renee. Get back to the wall. Put your hand in the air.
Okay, Randy Miller. The owner of the law firm is the brother of Oakland County, Michigan Registrar's Deeds Office. And most of his fabrications and forgeries can be found in Oakland County, along with proof that attorney Raymond Scodeller forges most loan documents, including one in which he stole the corporate identity of Weiler Mortgage Group, LLC, my company, to assign a mortgage directly to convicted felon Patrick Joseph Soria's bogus company, the Bank of New York Mellon Trustee. I, Renee Weiler, hereby certify under penalty of perjury that this information contained herein is true and accurate based on over a decade of my research as a mortgage broker and SEC whistleblower.
And Renee, let everybody know, I know, so that those of you know here, Renee found 24 cases of Patrick Soria. Just talk about those real quickly, because that's a very important key to tonight's show, because the authorities who, adjudicated this case said he had over 2,000 victims. Well, we're here to tell you he has a lot more than 2,000 victims. One of them that had no idea that this was going on, even that he'd been convicted, contacted me today. Renee, talk about those 24 cases real quick so I can roll on.
Yes, I actually gave the commissioner our board to SHA suspension letters involving Patrick Joseph Soria. And nothing was done. So I actually took 24 of the deeds that I could find with the Bank of New York Mellon Trustee in the chain of title, and I gave it to the probate judge, Marion Krokowski. Several of those owners had passed away. So that's her department, Marion Krokowski. And I just checked, and she did not refer this to the prosecutor. It has gone nowhere. And I just realized that his other bogus company, Patrick Soria's Wilmington Trust, and there's a long name associated with that, but I'm just going to refer to it as the Wilmington Trust. There's another 39 deeds that have his footprint on them.
Right. And Renee and I was not well enough to go down to the land records. So I did some research online, and we were pulling up Bank of New York Mellon. And what I found was thousands and thousands and thousands. So many, in fact, I could only pull up 1,186 at a time. And what we know is that Patrick Soria has a lot of LLCs, a lot of different affiliations. We know that there's probably ties to some of our attorneys involved, law firms, etc. So when you have thousands and thousands of documents being recorded in the name of an empty trust, because we know all of these trusts are empty, and Tom may talk about that a little bit too, but you cannot have something empty and pretend that you have something there. It doesn't exist. So they've put all these forgeries on the record. So right now we're going to move on. Go ahead, Faith.
Yeah, and remember too, he didn't just do LLCs. He did things like the Mortgage Protection Network, Homeowner Help Initiative, Deutsche Mellon National Asset LLC, HBSC US, Westford or Westway Legal Groups, amongst others.
Right. And there's a plethora more, because with each one connected to him, they have their own LLCs and their own circle that they use. So this LLC to hide yourself, yeah, you can hide yourself, but it's got to come to an end anyhow. So I'm going to move on. We know that we get riled up on these things because we know we have the evidence, we have the proof, we have what they now want to term receipts, but yet they don't want to give us anything in return for our receipts. and that's a problem for us. Okay, so our next guest on the panel is Rory Woods. Rory is a dynamo woman. She has come onto the scene with us in the last 5 years, Rory, that we've known each other, I think. Yeah, so I've unmuted you, I hope. Rory, actually, you're going to love this story. We've all been known to do things at the time of SWAT teams and at the time of lockouts and at the time of being told, get out of your home with no notice, where they're destroying your property. You're not even being able to take your property. Well, Rory had a different idea. She brought live honeybee hives to an unlawful eviction in Western Massachusetts. It was involved in laundering of a private property deed. The media assault against her that followed intensified the stalking and tempering of her motor vehicles. That has harassed her for years, and yet she lives. So buzz over to you, Rory. Tell us a little bit about what you know, and thank you for all your time. Oh, did she get booted? Rory hit something and booted herself up. She'll be back. She'll buzz back in. So,
okay, well, while we're waiting, just a kind of reminder for everybody out in the audience out there, Patrick Joseph Soria was age 35. He received a 135-month prison sentence from the United States District Judge Dale S. Fisher, who described Soria as a skillful con man behind a sophisticated scheme, and remarked on the scheme's brazen and heartless nature, emphasizing the impact of not, while it wasn't the largest case in dollar amount, was pretty darn bad. Okay, so here's the thing is when you're having a foreclosure, you're considered the occupant. You're not even considered the owner because it was seasoned up front. And remember, the owner immediately became a tenant under the leasehold estate and foreclosure on the third party's interest. It's a pro tanto matter of law. The tenant is a tenant under a leasehold estate and a foreclosure on a third party interest. Okay, these consumer products are sold as reverse mortgages. That's what has been going on here. And because they were sold as a reverse mortgage, there are revisionary actions that need to be happened to restore, the title, which is what we're trying to talk about in one of the remedies that we're trying to bring forward. I mean, what you're really dealing here is a deferred conversion, an involuntary conversion of income that was passed through you as a creditor, what they borrowed on the full value of the good faith estimate. And that income is what they're going after by these illegal foreclosures, even though they've already been laundered out.
Correct. So it's all property ownership, laundering, title trafficking. Well, I'm going to get in and we'll hear from Rory in just a minute, but I'm going to go on and keep to what information we know we want to get out tonight. And one of the interesting things tonight is about Judge Fisher, her statement about Soria. She said, quote unquote, Soria is a skillful con man who created a very sophisticated scheme. This is not the largest case she's ever presided over in terms of dollars, but it's the most brazen and heartless. Okay, BS. If you saw, pretty much BS. We're not buzzing here. We're talking, I'm going to say it, bullshit. It really is. And I'm sorry, I've had it. These kind of statements are theatrical. These judges are not acting. They're creating dereliction of duty is what they're doing. They have a duty. And
they do. And what kills us is really between you and I, we submitted over 3,000 identifiable individuals via these inserted criminal syndicates. Okay. And they're inserted. We know Schwarzenegger inserted Otelio in the UD courts in Riverside. We know he runs a first team real estate through his wife who are getting the REO listings, and he's got his Form 700 with a vested interest. We all know that these were located in San Diego, Riverside, Orange County, and Los Angeles using the secure software system. So I guess our question here to our wonderful judges and also, our sledgehammer Judge Carter and our federal district court James Hatter, would they like to actually come on live here and explain to our listeners why they destroyed evidence in the court of a federal law court?
Well, I don't know if you mentioned, and I don't know if everybody caught it, but we did invite Orange County District Attorney Todd Spitzer, Assistant DA Leslie Young. We invited Judge Fisher, and we also invited Patrick Soria himself, but due to the fact that he's in prison, it's been a little bit hard, but we are I have correspondences going, so that'll be on another one of our shows. So we're doing everything we can to say, hey, come talk to us. Let's debate this. But what Judge Fisher, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, because it's always very interesting where their foundations are and where they come from. And we know that Judge Carter, Judge Sledgehammer Carter, presided over the Anna Nicole Smith case. Well, Judge Fisher resided over the Paris Hilton case, where she had that big whoop-to-do with the guy who was pretending to be a sheik and from another country, and turns out he was nothing more than a con man himself. Well, she got that case as well. So there's a lot of theater that plays out. And Patrick Soria, West Hollywood, it was interesting. Carol sent me a show. It's a reality show called The Men of West Hollywood. So she's drawing correlations there that are very interesting. So I wish she could have made it on tonight. But Judge Fisher, she's a Cornell graduate, 1974 to 1981, was a prosecutor in the Broome County in DA's office in New York, and was a special prosecutor for the New York State General's office in Syracuse, New York, for a year. She was a private practice for over 17 years, from 1980 to 1997. That was with Heller, Ehrman, White, and McCarthy. Now, what's interesting, too, is they're one of the top 100 firms in the country. And in the 1920s, the law firm helped completely revise the California's Universal Corporation Code. You hearing this? This is what this law firm that she worked with for 17 years. When the firm's lawyers helped complete that, and then they merged with the Union Trust Company, merged with Wells Fargo of Nevada, National Bank. They represented both of its clients, and then continued to serve the merged entity as its largest client. So Wells Fargo was the largest client of this law firm she worked with for 17 years. Other companies served at the time were Procter & Gamble, huge companies with whistleblower claims, Federal Construction Company, Patterson Ranch, look up Patterson Ranch, Italian American Bank, National Surety Company, Sacramento Northern Railroad Company, United States Rubber Company. This gets really interesting when you see these parties. What it does is tell you they know. These attorneys know, these judges know what's going on. The San Francisco-based firm is recognized for its key role in developing the West, having helped found Wells Fargo and arrange for financing of the Golden Gate Bridge. In the late 20th century, the firm has become a leader in the providing legal services to new high technology and biotechnology industries. Its corporate clients include Visa, B of A, Symantec Corporation, Philip Morris, Pacific Gas and Electric, Alzacorp, Raychem. It was founded in the U.S., Raychem was, in 1952. It was a United States company. It was a U.S. company. And then it incorporated in 1989 after it was purchased by Tyco, and with joint ventures in India. And Ernst & Young is another one. So they've got multiple. So in 1997, Judge Fisher was appointed to the municipal court by California Governor Wilson, and in 2000 became a Superior Court judge, then recommended by Dianne Feinstein to the district court, and was appointed by Bush in 2003. At her appointment hearing, this is what I extrapolated out of all of the information I read online of her when I said, what does she think about law? Well, if you go to the robing room, you're going to hear a lot of things. But when she was being appointed, she was asked what parts of the judicial temperament she considers most important. And she answered, don't blow your nose out here if you're drinking anything. Senator, when it comes to judicial temperament, I think one of the first elements is the ability to listen. People feel that they have received the kind of fundamental fairness that they're looking for in the courts when they have the opportunity to be heard. And in order to allow somebody to be heard, you have to listen. You have to treat them with respect. And you have to approach anything they say with respect. She thanked a lot of friends that were there at her swearing in. She's supposed to be stepping down, semi-retired May 1. And I also found this other interesting thing on her website for her courtroom. She, all the judges have a list of requirements for documents and how you send them things. And you want to make sure if you're dealing in the court that you go and look at what they want you to do. Well, one of the key things here that she demands, proposed orders must include Judge Fisher's correct name and title. Dale S. Fisher, United States District Judge. Orders with an incorrect spelling or title will not be signed. Okay, Faith, how many of us just sitting here on this call tonight have told the court, the DA, the SEC, oh, you keep naming, hey guys, this trust is not any trust that exists. They've changed the name even just a little bit. Well, if Judge Fisher says, if it's not accurate and it's not exactly, it's not going to be signed. But yet, judges across this country are signing orders, well, their clerks are, signing orders that have misspellings, fake businesses that don't exist, and perjury by court officers. And we know that when an officer records something, they're not in dereliction of duty recording it. When they have fraud upon the court is when they're told that there's problems with the document, that the document could be a forgery, and they still proceed as if there's nothing wrong with that document.
Because they're recording it upon accommodation. And when they record it on an accommodation, they feel they don't have liability to be held responsible for their actions. Okay. And again, I mean, didn't we have a whistleblower come forward from McCarthy and Holdis that basically said that they were just telling her, just go fabricate something to throw it on as an assignment?
What her quote unquote was, her job was to create title where none exists. And it's not just the proposed orders or accommodation. What I'm talking about is
they were actually chains of assignments and self-assigning deeds.
Right. And what I'm talking about, though, is we know is these attorneys like Stephen Daly of Kutok Rock. Our home, which is the picture behind me, was stolen with a forged assignment, a forged deed. Both of those documents he presented to the court and perjured himself with because I made it clear that both of those documents were forgeries. We all on this call have documents that we've told this attorney, this law firm, these men and women are perjuring the court and giving false testimony and false claims of who they're representing as well.
Well, they're acting as duly appointed trustees, and they refuse to provide their Form T2, and it's a crucial form to verifying their authorization. Come on, now, this is a Treasury thing. What is this, the Trust Indentured Act? Hold on a second. It's 17 CFR 260.5B. It's a mandated section of the Trust and it's essential for conforming their eligibility, especially on these deferred, delayed offerings that they're coming forward to try to do this tax evasion scheme on. And it is a tax evasion scheme. You guys are getting issued a 1099-A. You're being issued it because of the involuntary conversion they are putting in it. They've already laundered out. So what they're doing is they're double dipping, and they're going in and stealing basically from the coffers of our Treasury, which, you know, the whole thing. I mean, we don't pay taxes to the government. They get their things from printing out money and printing their bonds, and that's what pays the government. The Treasury's printing of the bonds. So this whole thing is one giant money laundering scam for the write-off. I mean, we've pretty much been in a position of involuntary servitude for at least 50 years or more, if not 100. This goes back way to 1913 and beyond. And this is like,
correct. Well, and let me get on here. Let's stick to what we need to do, because this show could go on for 3 hours, and we're going to bring a lot of this in the next show. So let's stick to what we're supposed to be talking to a little bit so that we can get through this. We're going to go into and explain the John Min investigation. In 2021, I sent in a identity theft claim to the IRS, claiming that it was identity theft and title trafficking and laundering. And John Min, investigator from the Orange County District Attorney's Office, reached out to me and asked me for my information. I had to fill out the real estate fraud form, sent it in, and ended up where he said he needed me to be a little more detailed. So what I did was I took 7 binders, each labeled, in a big bin, and gave him the evidence to back up my claims. From then, other people came in and started giving their claims because they had Stephen Daly, Scott Hansen, SPS, Bank of New York Mellon as trustee, fake names. They had Wolf Law Firm. They had Quality, I said Quality Loan, McCarthy, Halthus, Ocwen, a lot of these companies and a lot of these same attorneys and names. Judge Carter, just by the fact that he destroyed evidence, was a crime. And the marshals told me that spoliation evidence is a crime. So with that, he contacted me. I gave him the evidence. Don't forget, we also have the real estate agents involved. Julie Bruckner, who's a broker, who for years was working on selling my home. Renee Weiler actually contacted her many times. I sent many cease and desist. So we've got many, many victims that came forward to the Orange County District Attorney. Everyone on this call, I believe, sent information in as well. We have many parties that aren't on this call, but who are listening, who also presented their evidence. So right now I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to introduce you to Tom Kibler. Tom is a dear friend of mine now. We've known each other for many years, and we've been really trying hard to stay healthy. Both of us have had strokes. Tom has really had some time coming back from that. He's had decades of experience in securities, Prudential, Bach, Drechel, Burnham, Payne Weber, and finance, WMC, Novastar, GMAC, RFC, etc. Before being permanently retired 7 years ago, following a near fatal stress, 7 years of thieves trying to steal his home probably didn't help, in 14 non-judicial sales, beaten and postponed. 14, he's done this himself. Induced aortic dissection that required 2 emergency open heart surgeries and left him permanently disabled. The stress of what we, the people, go through during these times, and I can tell you, the people doing this to us, they don't care. We're not going to hurt them by saying you've hurt us. We're not going to hurt them by saying you're awful people. They know they are. They don't care. They breathe and live to be awful people, because the whole thing is about money, about their credit. So,
I spoke to a representative from Blackhawk.
After a 13-year battle, a small army of thugs, costumed as deputies, forcibly removed him by force of arms from his free and clear land of 27 years, under threat, duress, and coercion, enforcing 2 unenforceable nullity void judgments. And 2 months later, police did nothing as thugs with pickup trucks emptied his house and garage of all his personal property, much like ours. I lost everything right down to my tidy whities. So, Tom, let's go ahead and let you talk for a few minutes. You're unmuted. Thank you for being here with us tonight. Tom Kibler, please go ahead and give us your statement.
Thanks, Billy. I'm up here in cold Minnesota, not so cold this year, but as Billy said, in 2018, I became an interested party in the Powers and Brashears cases. And then in 2021, I followed Billy and submitted my criminal claims to John Min at the Orange County District Attorney Real Estate Fraud Division. I contacted him several times since then, gotten no response by email or telephone call. I also made criminal claims of my own to the OCDA and to John, to my local police, to my county attorney, to my sheriff, to my attorney general, as well as the FBI and DOJ. And I also sent information to the FTC, CFPB, SEC, OCC, and a few more, I imagine. Nothing's been done, but much is documented at my website, which is linked and bookmarked on my Facebook page. It's www.1694 Valerie Lane, New Brighton, MN.com, all one word. I'm battling petty fogger shysters Kevin Doby of us at Weingarten and Orrin Kipp of Wilfred Geske, who it's interesting, when I do a little research on them, both of their standard industrial classifications for those law firms is government agent. So they seem to be protected. They also seem to be fronting for serial offender select portfolio servicing that Billy mentioned, filing frivolous false claims without being engaged, which is a felony contempt in itself, in the names of Deutsche Bank National Trust Company, or DBNTC, the little LLC out in Santa Ana, California, that really isn't a trust company, as purported trustee for long closed and dead Long Beach Mortgage Loan Trust, 2005 WL2. That REMIC closed August 30th of 05, and it terminated on January 13th of 06. Both those entities are unregistered, thus unqualified in Minnesota to own property, conduct business, or access the courts. And the forged assignment, by the way, was in 2012, 7 years late. 5 administrative clerks acting as judges, Richard Kyle Jr., Laura Nelson, Katie Bergstrom, Sarah Gruing, and Pat Diamond, have trampled my rights, issuing void judgments when there was no jurisdiction, when I had also challenged agency and authority. I had also pointed out that we were well past the statute of limitations. Didn't care. All trespassing to enforce the void judgments. Interestingly enough, the directors at DBNTC have failed to rebut several affidavits, thus acquiescing by default, and their agents have actually communicated to the CFPB that they're not involved and never engaged the pettifogger shysters. My police chief, Tony Patesnick, who is a pastor and runs a church for the police in the Twin Cities, and his assistant chief, Trevor Hamdorf, they seem pretty much to be in cahoots with the criminals, with the dirty attorneys. The city council member, or a city council member, Emily Dunsworth, is a dean at a local law school where both the aforementioned dirty attorney, Orrin Kipp, and the felony prosecutor at the county, Hao Nguyen, are co-workers as assistant law school professors. They were also classmates together at the law school. And Trevor claims that he took my felony complaints to the county attorney. They examined it and said they saw no crime and closed the file. But I can't get any documentation. I can't get names of who did that. I can't get confirmation anywhere that anything was really sent. At the sheriff's department, several of Sheriff Bob Fletcher's staff, the former county manager Ryan O'Connor, who has failed to rebut several affidavits and has now moved on, County Commissioner Mary Jo McGuire, same thing, have done nothing but hide. My Attorney General Keith Ellison and his right-hand Solicitor General Liz Kramer have actually put in writing, after they kept losing fraud complaints of mine, that they have done everything they can do, and I'm not to contact them anymore. And of course, they've done nothing. And their job is to investigate, prosecute, and prevent crime. Excuse me. James Ryerson of the Attorney General's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, I spoke to I think an honest U.S. attorney, and he said, Tom, I can't believe these people have done nothing, but you need to go to the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, which is like an FBI for the Attorney General. And so I spent hours with James, sent him dozens of pages, and after a month, I heard back from his assistant, but they saw no crimes anywhere. And so I did a common law request. After doing a FOIA request, it came up with nothing. And with my common law request, I got back this profile of me. They had sent all my information to the Anti-Defamation League, and some goofball there wrote up a 15-page report profiling or analyzing me as an anti-government sovereign citizen because I spoke about the Constitution and my rights.
And as we talked about today, that's slander. And that's also putting you in danger because of the fact that the FBI has claimed that the term sovereign citizen means you're a domestic terrorist.
Right.
What does that tell us? That puts you in real trouble, because if something's pulled up with that on there, as we discussed, you could really be in danger, and you've had enough danger. You've had enough. So go ahead and finish, Tom.
Oh, I was just going to say that in my case, and I think most of ours, bad public servants at the city, county, state, and federal level seem to be active participants with the dirty attorneys, certainly allowing, but perhaps aiding and abetting actively these crimes. It seems to be a coast-to-coast racketeering scheme stolen from so many of us, and we have documented so much shirking of fiduciary duties, these oath violations, under color of law, neglect to prevent harm, and so many instances of misprisions, failing to report felonies and treasons. And again, when they commit a misprision by not following up on that felony, they are accessories after the fact, and that's punishable, big time.
And that's why we're going to go ahead, and this show is all about setting us up. We've got thousands of people across the country that we deal with, and the whole intent of this show is to show the dereliction of duty and the one simple fact: we need to clean the land records. So let's go ahead and go back. I see Rory's back in now.
Hey,
I'm
Rory.
going to unmute her.
Can
There
I
we
throw
go.
out one conclusion?
Yeah,
there?
go
Rory,
ahead,
can we circle back to Linda? I'd like her
Yeah,
to finish.
Yeah, she'll finish. Go ahead, Tom.
You had asked me to do a little research and find out if the county attorney was prosecuting, to protect investors and just ignoring us. And I said, I don't think he's doing a damn thing. So I dug in a little further, and I saw that this Hao Nguyen, the guy that I talked about, who's a classmate with the dirty attorney, he's now the trial division director. In late 21, the prior trial division director, Richard Dusterhoff, resigned. He said the county was too soft on crime. And in late 22, another assistant county attorney, Dana Mitchell, accepted a settlement offer after she claimed that she was retaliated against for being a whistleblower. The Minnesota County Attorneys Association executive director says that these resignations reflect a national trend. He's seen similar stories of frustrated prosecutors walking away from their jobs, at least in California, Michigan, New York, New Hampshire, Colorado, Maryland, Utah, and Missouri. Now, I had said earlier, my county manager failed to rebut several affidavits. There's one on my website that's it's fairly binding, and it says, if you don't rebut, you admit. But he's now moved on to a new role. He got promoted for being, a good ostrich. But the Minnesota Supreme Court justice that refused to respond to me or meet with me, and after I complained about all 5 of these bad judges and their bad supervisor, stepped down quite suddenly and unexpectedly last October. Her replacement, I'm trying to get in touch with, but she's of course
well, thank you for doing
as
that.
well.
I'm glad you looked that up. Okay, we're gonna go back to Rory.
Tom, you
Linda,
look well. You look very well.
Thank you.
and we're gonna go back to Rory. Linda comes back on later on the itinerary, so she will be getting back in. Rory, go ahead. Our beehive lady.
Oh, thank you, Billie. Thank you, Faith. Thank you for having me. I tell you, just to clarify, I was pollinating my bees there at Alton King Jr.'s house in Long Meadow. My bees were foraging because he had some lovely plants that were producing nectar and pollen. Just for the record.
Okay.
Now, we are just desperate for justice here in Massachusetts. I want to tell you that some of the names that Patrick Joseph Soria is using as aliases in Massachusetts include Spencer Ferguson, Juan Soria, Spencer Soria. Those are heavily used in the Plymouth Registry of Deeds, but he's in all of essentially the registries of deeds around Massachusetts. And when I looked in the bankruptcy records in Massachusetts, I found hundreds of people being actively foreclosed, or actually since 10/10/22, by bankruptcy judges in Massachusetts. The October 10, 22 is the date that the FHFA put out the cease and desist order against Patrick Joseph Soria, including all of his aliases and business entities, all of his LLCs. So why are those judges still foreclosing? To get more serious, Patrick Joseph Soria and his many aliases, including multiple LLCs and other business constructs, has been issued that cease and desist order by the FHFA, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, which is the conservator for Fannie Mae, the Federal National Mortgage Association, as of October 10, 2022. Despite the final suspension orders, Massachusetts judges, both state and federal, have allowed Wilmington Savings Fund Society Trust and the Bank of New York Mellon Trust, both suspended Soria entities, to evict families from their homes. This is unlawful. This is illegal. It is unconscionable, and these egregious, unlawful acts by so-called justices must be reversed, while the affected homeowners must be restored to their homes and they must be made whole in each of these United States. It is not enough that Patrick Joseph Soria is serving jail time in California for his crimes. Every false title laundering, home ownership theft, and every false eviction involving Patrick Joseph Soria and the entities he controlled must be unwound, and full restitution to the homeowners must be made. Soria is a sociopath. That is a given. And while so-called justices continue to remove homeowners from their homes in which Soria had a hand in the title trafficking, well, what does that make them? Are they not corrupt politicians presiding over kangaroo courts in a banana republic? Certainly, they are not justices presiding with any legitimacy. Soria is not an anomaly. These cases start with false filings into our land records and go right on up to DARPA, the Department of Defense's Emerging Technologies Research Arm. Apparently, they're in the process of scrapping our constitutional republic in favor of world dominion. This is treason on steroids. Apparently, the bad actors think they're going to get away with it because they have electronic energy weapons. And I speak from personal knowledge when I say they hurt. Anyone can be targeted with precision anywhere on this planet. And this must be stopped.
Exactly. You know what, Rory? That was powerful. That was very powerful.
That was very powerful. Right. And you got to remember that he was required under the Mandatory Victim Restitution Act to make restitution. The thing is, when I was speaking to the clerk over there or the deputy over there, there's no restitution to gain from him because they stripped him. So what we're really dealing with is how do we do the back end restitution to get the homeowners their home back and still create enough of cash flow, look flow, or money flow that makes it appealing enough for all these judges, all these attorneys, and all these backdoor, criminal, cartel wannabes to kind of ease off. And that's what Billie and I have been going after for a very long time. Those power of attorneys that we trace them back to really can reverse engineer a lot of this and give recompense and restitution and restore even the Treasury itself. And I hope we have our esteemed past FinCEN representatives here. I would really hope that this message is reaching your ears. There is a way that we can balance these books properly with it going back to the people in a way that will not break the banks.
Exactly.
Faith, I have an idea. Why don't we just disgorge the judges and clerks who've taken all the illicit gains from the title theft of our homes?
I agree with that too. The ones that are absolutely knowingly, willingly doing this, they do need to be held accountable at such levels. And these accountabilities are tiered, depending on the class that they're in. Now judges in their own defenses, they have protections, certain other protections of prosecutions. They have sovereign immunity. Okay. So one of the things that Billie and I were talking about the other day were the recent case that came across was one regarding the sovereign immunity where there's actually tests for it. And one of the tests do go into that as one of the legitimate requirements. So it's very interesting to see. They did it to protect themselves.
What we know is they don't have sovereign immunity based on these facts.
No, they really don't, because this is all acting beyond their scope. This is all acting beyond the Authors of Incorporation, and it all goes back to that MERS trademark. That's why no state can adjudicate upon it. And these states that are doing so in treason.
Exactly. Well, let's get on. Let's go ahead, and I'm gonna introduce you to someone who is a man that I have a lot of respect for. He and I have known each other for quite some time. And I'll pick up the phone sometimes, just call and say, "Hey, Jack, how you doing?" He's a Santa Barbara landowner who spent 14 years fighting to save his family property. The first mortgage paperwork was allegedly acquired by New York Community Bank after the first lender went bankrupt. Shortly thereafter, one of the first lender's employees from the company that went bankrupt told Jack that the original loan paperwork had been sold into a PIMCO trust. and that the bank had been paid in full. Thus, New York, the NYCP or B, the New York Community Bank, was not the legitimate creditor. So in 2015, Jack offered full tender. He went into these people he owed no money to. He offered full tender for them to give him his satisfaction of deed of trust. Okay. And when he did that, he took in one of his professionals, one of the best experts that you're going to find out there, top notch, and for 3 hours with Aldrich Pike. Valerie Lopez knows Aldrich Pike very, very well in San Diego, Pike and Duncan. The examination was of the wet ink, was supposed to be of the wet ink paperwork. But what happened was they found they were forgeries, and they knew, he knew, and his expert knew. So what we found there was, oh crap. So what happens is from there, they tried to take Jack's home. There was no settling. There was no paying it off. There was no settling. Jack was trying very hard to offer tender, which what happens if they offer tender and instead of accepting it or reconveying as required by law, they just tried to take his home. So the whole process has cost Jack over $800,000, over 4,000 hours in the past 14 years of work and research, bankruptcies multiple times to save his home. Under duress to end the madness, he signed a loan modification just this last year. No judge or DA helped him. And one attorney many of us know, Stephen Daly, appears to have had Jack gang-stalked by law enforcement. Jack tells us about Jack, we're going to have you tell us about your damages by Kutok Rock Stephen Daly, the man many of us victims have brought claims to the Orange County DAs, multiple DAs in Southern California, and to the state bar. So, Jack, I'm going to introduce you now, and I'm going to have you explain a little bit in your own words. Go ahead.
Okay, so I first heard about Stephen Daly when I had a lawsuit before Judge Peter Gutierrez in Los Angeles. And in the beginning, the court stipulated a settlement conference, which was to be done over the phone with just Daly, myself, and my representative, John Casanes, who's one of 4 people who've either died or been killed.
He's also passed on, correct?
For 4 of the people I've been working with have either died or been killed.
Yes.
Daly just stuff and then refused to engage in any conversation with me and then just hung up on me. He then submitted under the penalty of perjury a false report to the court that we had had a conversation. So I made a bar report on that. Well, I continued to file motions to the court. Unfortunately, Gutierrez kept pulling all the cases back to him and always ruling for Daly. Incidentally, this was when SPS had it because they had bought their rights from New York Community Bank probably for pennies on the dollar.
They bought empty paper.
Yeah. In January 2019, I had a sale date postponed the morning of the sale date. It was postponed and Daly reversed it on the morning of the sale date. I had to struggle to get that wiped out at the last minute. The company that does the sales say they had never had anything like that happen before. That's what kind of power Daly has. So based on the Gutierrez's nonsensical rulings and that he would never deal with the uncontested forgery evidence, it was easy to see that Gutierrez was under Daly's thumb. I thus had to appeal to the Ninth Circuit. But there, Daly buried them with over 3,000 pages. He sent me a copy of it. It was 17 pounds. It was this high stack with papers. It was
mine was 35 pounds, Jack. That sent me twice that size.
So he knew that they would never get around to reading the forgery evidence, and so he followed that up by getting the FBI to spend over 40 hours investigating me to try to dig up dirt. I have people renting from me here at the house, and although I had previously handed the FBI the unchallenged forgery reports, they chose not to investigate my reports. However, Daley, who brags on the website and the internet about his FBI connection, got the FBI to contact all my current and previous renters and even asked the women about any inappropriate sexual behavior on my part. And then the FBI people, when they came, I had them come to talk to me, and they lied and said they never asked the women.
Dog, you.
And of course, I contacted the women again, and they said he absolutely did ask us. And he also accused me, the FBI guy, of being a sovereign citizen. At that point, I had no idea what that even was. And then later, I had a lawsuit before the Southern District of New York. And again, Daley buried the evidence of the forgery in the over 1,000 pages he filed with the Southern District in New York. And of course, you all know he works for Kutak Rock, which is a huge national law firm. Lastly, I was in bankruptcy court in 2022 with the judge openly stating that he would look at the forgery evidence. However, that was with Aldridge Pite representing the pretender lender at that point, Select Portfolio Servicing, because it looked like they were losing after the first session with the judge. In the next court appearance, Aldridge Pite was out and Daley was there. And at that point, myself and my supporters observed that the judge turned completely, switching from day to night, like he was afraid to rule in any way against Daley.
Wow.
Daley has got some control.
Yeah, he's a heavy hitter, and I know a lot about him now because over the years we've done a lot of research. Renee Weiler actually did a audit report on his homes, and his family are big in real estate in Colorado. He's got a lot of connections in title and real estate. His name, Kutak Rock's offices, their main offices are right there in Washington, right by the Capitol. So we're dealing with very heavy hitting people who've gone to school together, who owe each other favors, who really have, shall we say, quite the resume of friends. Valerie is having a heck of a time getting in. Let me see if we can hear her at all.
Yeah,
Valerie,
I'm on my.
There you go. Okay.
Yay!
I'm on my
Well,
pad.
let's let Faith introduce you.
Oh, me. Oh my gosh.
Oh, you. Yes.
Give me a second.
Well,
Give me a second. I just lost everything.
you want me to introduce her?
Valerie is awesome, wonderful, amazing, smart, talented.
Okay,
Well,
Valerie.
hold on. I'm going to finding the introduction.
Now, let me go on because we're really running late for time here tonight. Valerie's a dear friend of mine. She's really been fighting a battle that, unlike anyone who has not been through this could ever understand. She's been an industry professional since 1987. She's active in selling and buying businesses and served in managing Section 8 and tax credit departments. She's got extensive title knowledge and is herself a whistleblower and advocate for saving our land. Go ahead, Val. Thank you for calling in to get on.
Okay, no problem. So, first of all, I would like to just go over a couple of cases that I actually used to reverse 2 illegal, unlawful eviction judgments against me, awarded to people with 0 right to my homes. What I did is I actually hired the best forensic accountants and investigators, one being Lynn Zamoniak. So I had strong people behind me to pretty much establish fact that my home was involved with a very sophisticated, complex transaction. Okay, so let me just go over the cases here just to confirm what we already know. The first one is Trout versus Taylor. Made that plain long ago, holding numerous authorities have established that the rule that an instrument wholly void, such as undelivered deed, a forged instrument, a deed in blank, cannot be made the foundation of good title, even under the equitable doctrine of bona fide purchase. Erickson versus Bond, and in corpus juris secundum, a void deed passes no title and cannot be made the foundation of good title, even under the equitable doctrine of bona fide purchase. In a recent 2012 case of La Jolla Group versus Bruce, although the law protects innocent purchasers and encumbrances, that protection extends only to those who obtain good title, good legal title. A forged document is void ab initio and constitutes a nullity. So I use those cases to win two appeals regarding unlawful eviction judgments that were used wrongfully to take me out of my homes. Let me just try to just skim through here. So my nightmare began when it was brought to my attention by a Bank of America employee that my home loan on my home showed America's Wholesale Lender, a lender which never existed anywhere in the United States. The records show America's Wholesale Lender was a trade name per the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and also DBA per County of Orange, California filings, but never a corporation anywhere. Never should have been presented to me as a valid corporation in the home loan docs. Also, California Business Professional Code 17900B3 makes firm that Bank of America and its partner Countrywide Home Loans are prohibited to present anybody that America's Wholesale Lender was a New York corporation. It was never a corporation. The forensic accountant and the Security Exchange Commission affirmed that I was involved with an undisclosed sophisticated electronic transaction whereby I was paying a debt for another debtor indebted to the Bank of New York Mellon Trust. The E-Sign Act required the debtor to Bank of New York Mellon to get my permission to direct my payments to pay their debt. Unknowingly, I was paying the debt of an undisclosed debtor as her surety. Because I chose not to pay the debt of another, that is what caused all my problems, and everything just exploded. Legal abuse left and right. One of the items that I had to endure was a DA investigator, Damon Tucker, who was recognized by Todd Spitzer, the district attorney, as a bad cop. And I would have to agree with Todd Spitzer. He's a bad cop. Again, I had forensic accountants and investigators, Lynn Zamodiak, as my experts to affirm the facts that I was involved with identity theft issues, tax evasion, securities fraud, and breach of trust. That was really evident in the courtrooms where I'm not going to even go into. I mean, it was like in a courtroom of mean girls. Absolutely amazing. Judges left and right, just acting like children, pretty much. Anyway, the bottom line is because I was having to deal with a lot of individuals that were just acting outside the law, I was taken out of my homes, but winning my appeals, I proved that I was taken out illegally by Robert Moss, Tim Stafford, Carmen Luigi. Amazing what I saw as far as Carmen Luigi. Just everybody knows the basic law that says that if you're a commissioner, the defendant or the plaintiff can say, I don't stipulate to you. Well, I told her I don't stipulate to you. And she usurped the case anyway and ruled in favor of a gentleman by the name of Steve Silverstein, who actually stole 3 of my homes with forged documents. And anyway, it's been
Yeah, you've actually had quite a journey, and you've actually been successful at reversing. I know I was a witness at one of your cases with Silverstein, and I was amazed I was amazed then. I'm no longer amazed at how they treated you. What concerned me more was the Damon Tucker situation with you. You having to go and defend yourself from staying out of court, from staying out of prison, because Damon Tucker was coming after you rather than the people he was supposed to be investigating that were harming you. And, John Min has all of this. Leslie Young has all of this. So go ahead, Faith.
Oh, okay. So we're going to circle back around to Linda Nash then? Is that what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to get there because I'm just trying to catch up. So Linda, you are amazing and wonderful. I can't wait to hear you. I'm just going to go ahead and reintroduce you. Why don't you go ahead and take the floor, and let's go ahead and get into it, okay?
How about I get her?
Oh, you got to unmute. Linda,
Yeah.
Unmute yourself. Push the button on the bottom.
I got it, Linda. Oh, you got it. There we go. Linda.
Unmute it.
Stop. Don't touch a thing. Don't touch anything. You're muted, Linda.
Got it.
There
Can you hear me now?
We got you.
Okay. I unmuted it. It went back on mute.
There you go.
Just
Now,
a couple
Linda,
of things.
you as the CEO, as the nonprofit for HRLO, Homeowners Legal Rights, I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, just a couple of quick comments. These judges are all aware these documents are fraudulent, and when they assist them in taking this land, they cannot then claim immunity because this is treason, and no one has immunity from treason. However, let me go on with some of the things that I wanted to say. Across this nation, the judiciary accepts and grants enforcement of these fraudulent documents, and the law enforcement refuses to prosecute other offenders, which have resulted in millions of Americans being deprived of their ownership right and displaced from their homes. And we're talking millions. By definition, this is an invasion, and it is a seizure of American soil, and the failure of government to enforce the laws that protect citizens' rights to own real property is a breach of the public's trust, and that is treason. Anyone who knows of treason must report it. We're all here. We've all reported it to a constitutional officer somewhere. Homeowners Legal Rights has sent an inquiry to the owners of secure software under the Freedom of Information Act in hopes of learning how these unlawful conveying documents found their way into our land records, who was the filer, and who may be profiting. We sent copies of our letter to Orange County, California's Board of Commissioners, and Leslie Young with the Orange County District Attorney's Office, and we will share our findings and our conclusions with them. And again, anyone who knows of treason must report it to a constitutional officer, and they cannot remain neutral. It is incumbent upon them to act, because non-acting is aiding and abetting the traitor.
Okay, and Linda, I know that I heard from you that you called Leslie Young because we actually had been pushing, Renee Weiler and I had been pushing really hard for our victims meeting this March. We weren't getting anywhere. We made tons of phone calls, tons of emails, faxes, and I know you called her asking about that. Can you tell a little about that phone call with Leslie?
I called her. She returned and left a message. She returned my phone call, and I advised her that homeowners' legal rights would like to be included in that meeting, even if it's just Zoom, to listen and to gather information. And she told me she knew nothing about an investigation. She knew nothing about any meeting. And I just simply advised her that should she have a meeting, please keep us in mind. We want to be part of that meeting.
Yeah, and then what I did was, before we had a full conversation, I had actually called her office and she answered. Now, you've heard the recording. I'm not going to share it publicly.
Yes, I did.
now, but you heard the recording. When I called her, what I found interesting was I said hi, who I was, and I said, I'm calling on behalf of all of the victims, all of us victims, and we've been trying tenaciously to get an appointment to come in and actually sit and speak with Todd Spitzer, district attorney. Mind you, this has been going on for years. When we did our walk in 2018, we went to his office, 2019, and we were told to get an appointment. We tried. Faith and I saw him on the riverbed. Faith, tell real quickly, give an opinion about what happened at the riverbed that day they were evicting the homeless. You're muted, Faith. I unmuted you. There you go.
Oh, he thought we were part of the homeless. And so when we did finally confront him with the fact that hey, look, we have documentation showing that the no mortgages existed. They're proposing on empty remix. He shut up and he walked off. He just didn't want to have it. He was just shutting it down.
Yeah, well, he did tell me to have his campaign manager, who was with him at the time. He handed me the business card and he said, take him, get an appointment, call him and set up a time for me to speak with you. This was before he was district attorney. This was 2018. So I actually, about a week later, decided, okay, I'm going to pick up this card and I'm going to call. It's time we get into Spitzer's office. And as I was calling, the news was on. And his campaign manager was being arrested for urinating all over the shelves in Rite Aid. So when I
gotta go.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So of course I didn't call him. I don't want to deal with these depraved people. But when I was sending things to John Min over the last 3 years, I did title one of my communications with him is, we have a bladder problem. We people are being pissed on while you guys are doing absolutely nothing for us. And we've got one of the women he had on the email with me was in huge trouble because she was sleeping with a married man in the office and the wife blew up the internet. We had Todd Spitzer being accused at the time and being sued for inappropriate behavior with women in his office. And
whistleblower gossipers. I like this.
But the problem is they're all suing each other while we're trying to get justice. And so I said, where is our time for you people to either go to jail, remove yourself from office and put people in there who can help us? You're getting a paycheck to sue each other and you're all just spending time in court, but not for we the people. They're pissing all over us. So with that said, we've had a lot longer show tonight than we planned on. Janet Hill was supposed to be with us tonight, but she had a death she was dealing with today, and we really didn't have time to deal with that. I'm going to, for 2 minutes, I'd like to do a recap here. Unmute yourself, anybody that'd like to say something, but stick to 2 minutes here, please. And let's finish this out, and then I'll close the show.
Well, I think that it's because of the enabling of this ownership trafficking by those in the higher positions that we're talking about in this administration. We're dealing with getting served a piece of that low-hanging fruit, which is what this Soria case is all about. Okay, so I kind of want to reach out to our military brothers and sisters and ask them, guys, isn't it time to call a ball? Aren't we long overdue for this? We're tired. You're tired. Everybody's tired, even on both sides. Of the people that know what's going on are getting sick of it too, from these criminal wannabes and cartel wannabes just pushing themselves around. I think what we need to do is just kind of take a moment to breathe, understand that none of this can be handled in the courts, understand that it's not going to go anywhere in the courts, even if we try. Just, we need help down here. We're calling up and we're reaching our hands out to you guys, and we're hoping that one of you will reach your hand down in return, because there's got to be a way to get us into the federal claims or to prosecute this trademark in some fashion so that we can shut it down and have this recompense start to roll back out. Because I know Renee and I have also gone to the congressmen and women across this nation, and we've showed them, look, this is viable. It can be done. It can be reverse engineered. It's not a difficult process. We have simplified this down to common sense. It's easy to implement. Why aren't you doing this? We could wipe out the national debt. We can actually turn around and create a new platform of pro forma, and we can take these old antecedent debt write-offs and completely renew them and restructure them in a way that doesn't involve tax evasion.
And then have clean land records. Tom, I see you want to make a quick. Do you want to make a quick statement?
I was just going to say that anybody that's not following the Supreme Court lately, we've had some very, very good news. First we had, Tyler versus Hennepin County saying that stealing equity is unconstitutional, can't be allowed. That was last year. The end of last year, and early spring, we had Axon versus the FTC, where Justice Gorsuch actually came out and said, for decades, we've been basically screwing the people and letting them lose property in these administrative tribunals. That's unconstitutional. They've got to have an Article 3 court of competent jurisdiction and a trial by jury. And they're making the same comments even more forcefully now in the Jarksy versus SEC case. So we've got momentum with the Supreme Court right now, which is really encouraging, because I think they're going to let the shit roll downhill and let these lower level people eat themselves. And
they can and will if we're allowed to move forward on a lot of the stuff that we've been held back on. I agree with you, Tom. I do.
Anybody else? Let's see. Go ahead, Rory.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Just following up on what Faith said, we have solutions. The National Infrastructure Bank, the legislation on that is ready to go. It only has about 37 sponsors in Congress. It needs 100 more, at least. And it's been ready to go for a while. People need to follow Ellen Brown and her publicbanking.org group in Southern California. They've been working on this for decades. And once we have a national infrastructure bank, we can restructure our economy. We can make everyone whole. And
exactly.
And we can dispense with these too big to fail banks, because that's a myth.
Well, and Chance, he actually was going to speak tonight on some common law issues. And basically what he's saying is that there's so many multiple violations here that he doesn't think a court exists in admiralty that anyone could seek remedy for. So they've all been weaponized against us, we the people, for the sake of almighty fiat currency. And he can barely wrap his head around the situations where they can justify their actions. Plus, no oaths of office. Now, this is key. We all know we've asked for oaths of office. They're all empty. No oaths of office, and a court that is registered under Dun & Bradstreet is just akin to a casino. That alone proves it's gambling at its best, and we all know the house always wins. RICO violations in the legal system also include the holders of the equity bonds, which the court salivates over. Pray for Nasara and the redemptions, financial. Will we be made aware in the reformations and the restorations? Blessing to the victims and trying to find peace in the fact that our Heavenly Father works in mysterious ways and we all await his judgment. You can't repair this court or the legal system. No redemption for a bankrupt corporation. It's too far gone. So what we all know is it needs to be shut down. We need to have real justice. And this show has been all about what we know, and as Linda says, is title trafficking. We've got to clean up the land records before anything. None of this will exist. We don't even have to have these conversations. Once we have the land records, Huna Gwen here in Orange County, I'll tell you, that man looks very different than when he came into office. And the few times I've seen him, he's actually run and hid from me when he sees me coming.
Hey, Billie, I guess it's time to open up these bookings of life and not at the Fed.
Yep, exactly. So I really want to thank you all for joining us tonight. It's gone a lot longer than we planned, but so has this journey, mine of 17 years and us of all over 10 years in this. Valerie, I know you've been at it. All of us have been akin to this for way too long. So on that happy note, I want to thank you all. And next week on Whistleblower Pie Season 2, it's Foreign Investor Pie. We're going to be slicing up America and feeding it where they are slicing up America and feeding it to the foreign countries, Ukraine, China, to name a couple slices of the foreign investor pie. So join us next week where we discuss All Rise Capital COO Mikhail Trubchik and the Chinese Communist Party and other foreign investors' connections to our whistleblowers. Hear how reports claim Trubchik and All Rise Capital launder ownership through America's landowners to themselves for their own benefit, evading taxes and killing off the American dream of owning our land. You won't want to miss it because All Rise Capital used U.S. funds to help launder a stadium worth millions in the Ukraine. There was a huge story about it, and I'm hoping that the gentleman who wrote the story, who I've spoken to at length, will come on and share his findings because he's the one that said it's ownership laundering. And when I called and found out that Mikhail Trubchik was the one sitting on my title, the attorney, one of the very well-known attorneys here in Newport Beach, clearly stated, well, he said, it's obviously, that's title trafficking. He's just sitting there. He's a placeholder. So with that place held for next week for our Foreign Investor Pie, thank you all again for joining us. Faith, do you have anything left to say besides farewell, adieu until we meet again?
Only that I'm very proud of you for everything that you guys, all of you have done, everything that you have faced, the deaths, murders, traumas, everything. The fortitude and magnitude of just your presence here is, and I don't mean just on the show, I mean your presence on this world, has done nothing but enrich the lives of thousands of countless people and people you don't even know. So bless you all.
Okay, guys, good night. And until we go home again, next week, we'll see you on Foreign Investor Pie. Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.